Ideal Protein Nation, let's go. I'm back. I'm sorry. It's been about 6 weeks or so since I've put out a show. I've had some issues to deal with relocating my parents and some health issues. But we are back and we are better than ever. I've got an amazing show that I've wanted to bring you for quite a while. The show's super special because I'm going to bring you the story of Lynnie Mehus. Lynnie is actually a client of mine. And the bottom line for this show is that the Ideal Protein Protocol is absolutely just the easiest, most simplistic approach to the fit getting fitter, right? So we're going to learn how people who are already fit but want to lose that, they've never been able to lose enough fat to see their muscles. They've never been able to improve their endurance ability the way that they've wanted to. We're going to learn how the Ideal Protein Protocol can be applied to this situation and help people reach fitness gains they've never knew they could. So for those of you who are new to the Life Possible podcast, the Life Possible podcast was designed to feature successful clients, coaches, and clinic owners who have used the Ideal Protein Protocol to reset their body and reset their mind and actually reset what's possible for their lives. And who am I and why am I doing this? Well, I tell you what, there's no easy way to put it. My name is Dr. John Barnes. And about 8 years ago, I found myself fat, sick, and depressed. The stresses of private practice, insurance companies, patients, et cetera, really had gotten to me. I'd allowed myself to lapse into obesity, never having had a weight problem before. And when I tried to lose weight like I usually could, it didn't work. But thank God, God brought me the Ideal Protein Protocol as the answer to all my prayers, both personally and professionally. Today, I actually live a life that I would consider healthy, vibrant, and alive. There it is. Sorry, a little technical difficulty. These pictures here are September of 2021, where I completed my first half Ironman distance triathlon. After losing over 60 pounds using the Ideal Protein Protocol, applying the principles that Lynnie and I are going to talk about today to endurance training, training my body to burn primarily fat for all of my endurance activities and reduce the need for carbohydrates. So let's just show you real quick. Yes, Lynnie Mehus. Lynnie has been a chiropractic patient of mine off and on for years. The most chronic situation that she dealt with was her lower back, especially when she would start training for races. I convinced Lynnie that the Ideal Protein Protocol was not just for weight loss, that it actually could affect a couple different parts of her life that she was dealing with. She decided to take a chance, and the rest is just an amazing story. Enough. You've heard enough from me. Let's actually bring Lynnie in. Where are you?
Hi.
Hey, Lynnie, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Dr. Barnes. How are you today?
You know how I am. Well, I'm dealing with things 1 minute at a time. Even the construction guys I just yelled at upstairs.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show. We had talked about this last year after some of your big accomplishments, et cetera. We both kind of got sidetracked with things, but you brought me in, and you'll have to stay to the end, ladies and gentlemen, because she's got a really super cool story involving a wedding that she was recently in. And she brought me that story, and I said, oh my God, we've got to do the show. So thank you again for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So like I already let out of the bag, let's go back. Do you even know how long we've been together? I can't even remember.
We've been together a very long time. It has been many, many years.
Yeah.
And many, many years. Probably, we go back at least 7 or 8, maybe longer.
Yeah. Neck problems, back problems, yes. Hip problems, you name it. We've kind of run the gamut over those years.
Mm-hmm.
And,
actually,
interestingly,
maybe closer to 10 years.
Yeah, it probably has been. But it's amazing we're so young as we are.
Absolutely.
So, and I haven't asked you in the pregame show or what have you, but I was interested in, can you tell me from your point of view, when we brought Ideal Protein into the office, before you and I even talked about it,
Mm-hmm.
what were some of the things that you noticed, or what was the impact did you see?
So I noticed obviously the food. The food came in and was right there in the little shopping area, which I had to go through to get back into the office for chiropractic care.
Yep.
And I noticed the people coming in and out, talking to their coaches, and the excitement around the program. I noticed the signs going up about all the weight loss that everybody was experiencing, the before and after pictures, amazing results that people were achieving.
Yeah. In fact, you had a couple of personal friends that took full advantage
I have a
of the
couple of
program.
personal friends. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super cool.
Mm-hmm.
But when you came in and we actually started having a discussion about potentially you doing the program, the thing that spurred that conversation was not, me saying, "Oh my gosh, Lynnie, you're so overweight, you need to lose some weight."
Not at all.
In fact, what did the conversation surround?
So the conversation surrounded the fact that I continued to struggle with the lower back, the sciatic issues, the inability to keep that in line and check, the inability to be able to go to the gym and weight train, the inability to be able to run any distance without it hurting. It ached and hurt without the inflammation going on. I could literally feel inflammation in my knees. I have a knee issue as well. I had to run with a knee brace on, and so it revolved around that, all the years of you keeping my body where it needed to be and my body still continuing to ache. And at the gym, I was not able to do a lot of lower body anymore. We had to kind of switch off of that. So then we really started talking about what was causing that inflammation and how maybe I could get rid of that and fix that and change things so that I could get back to the gym and back to running and hopefully be pain-free.
Yeah. And it wasn't just seemingly musculoskeletal and lower back, etc. If I remember correctly, you were also dealing with a lot of gastrointestinal stuff going on.
I had the bloating and the gastrointestinal problems and eating just, I felt terrible. And I thought I was healthy. I work out at the gym and I run. I thought I ate a very healthy diet. I thought I was a very healthy person because of my physical fitness and because of the diet that I thought was healthy. I thought I was a very healthy person. And overall, I didn't, generally see myself as really overweight or needing a weight loss protocol.
Well, and that's the thing too. It wasn't like you were taking blood pressure meds or, pre-diabetic or cholesterol, those kinds of things, right? So
no, but I felt terrible with the food I was eating. My stomach would be bloated. I had no energy. I didn't know it at the time was directly related to what I was eating, but
yeah.
Yes, I suffered from all.
And this is kind of my point. This is the profile of somebody who could benefit so much from doing the Ideal Protein program nutritionally, but has no idea that they could, or
Yes.
that they should or need to, right?
Yeah.
And this is a population who is, like I said, because they're not on medications, they feel like they're healthy. They're probably carrying anywhere from an extra 12 to 15 to 20 pounds or so, 25 pounds. And they're engaged in a fitness lifestyle. So they're going to the gym. They're a runner. And so they are running. They're doing these things. They've got a certain fitness level, right?
Yes.
They may even be fitter than their normal weight friends, etc. And so they're under this impression, because I've got a certain amount of fitness, I'm healthy. And this is one thing that I've been actually talking about for a long time, is that health does not equate to fitness, and fitness does not equate to health. They are two separate things. We need to learn to separate these things. One can be healthy but not fit, and one can be fit but not healthy.
Absolutely.
So when we started having this conversation, it seemed a little bit odd for me to say, so I didn't say you need to start the program. I said, hey, I'd love for you to come to my workshop, right?
Yes.
And you said, you know what? I'd love to hear more about it. So you showed up at the workshop, and what were some of your takeaways and your impression? What were the biggest things that you learned that night at the workshop?
So when I came to the workshop, which by the way is fantastic.
Thank you.
It is. It's very informative. When I came to the workshop, what struck me the most was the list of conditions and the symptoms, that go along with the conditions, and specifically the musculoskeletal for me, the aches and the pains and the bloating and the gastrointestinal, the things that just make you overall drag you down and weigh you down and make you feel terrible.
Yeah.
So that was very enlightening to learn that, as well as the carbs and the sugar, how the body breaks that down, what it does with it. Your carbs tanks, your fuel tanks, all of that, how it's all tied together. So then I was very intrigued.
Yeah.
Yes, very intrigued. And then I thought to myself, why would I not try this? If this is something that by doing this protocol and finding a way to fix my metabolism, if that would fix all the aches and pains, which I thought were normal for my age, more or less. If it would fix that, why would I not try this?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's, what? And I tell you what, just so that the listeners and the viewers might get just a hint of what that workshop might entail, I finally have brought the dreaded Tank Talk to the Life Possible podcast, ladies and gentlemen. So real quick, I just want to kind of go through this so that people kind of understand some of the science that goes on behind the Ideal Protein Protocol. Does this diagram look familiar?
Very enlightening. This is the program. This is the when you got into the fuel tanks and the tanks in our body and how they work, I was all ears.
So yeah, and it's usually me, a whiteboard, and a magic marker in my terrible handwriting. So at least, ladies and gentlemen, you'll be able to read what's on the screen. You'll be able to see what's going on there. And I will keep it brief. But the bottom line is that our body, the human body, has 3 fuel tanks. We've got a carbohydrate tank, a fat tank, and a protein tank where we store energy or fuel. Interestingly enough, our ability to store carbohydrates is extremely limited. It's limited to about 13,000 to 1,300 to 2,000 calories, and it's stored directly inside your muscle tissue. So the more muscle you have, the bigger carb storage you have. The less muscle you have, the less carb storage you have. The fascinating part of it is that our ability to store away fat, unfortunately, seems to be unlimited. Right? And our protein tank, our protein storage tank, literally is our muscle tissue itself. All 3 of these things, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, can be burned for energy, but they were supposed to be. They're meant to be burned at very specific times. We're meant to burn carbohydrate energy for high intensity effort, high intensity exercise. If we're sprinting really fast, or if we're lifting something heavy, or we're doing that HIIT workout, we're doing Orange Theory, we're doing that kind of stuff, we're meant to burn carbohydrates as our primary fuel. We're not meant to burn carbohydrates on a podcast or a Zoom call. Does that make sense, Lynnie?
Oh, that makes perfect sense to me.
Somewhere along the way, somebody told us that carbohydrates were the preferred fuel of the body, and that our body burns them all day long, primarily, for our activities of daily living and sitting at a desk and doing desk work. And that was absolutely the wrong idea. Our body was meant to burn fat for our activities of daily living. Fat is a clean burning, steady source of energy that our body can tap into and use for anything like this. Right now, I will tell you very, very convincingly that Lynnie in my body is burning fat to be on the podcast. Now, I burned carbs when I ran all the way up 3 floors and yelled at the construction guys to shut up. And then hopefully I've brought myself back into fat burning by this stage of the game. Certainly, if you are an endurance athlete, your body should burn fat as its primary energy for that entire race, that entire event. And we're going to talk about that later. And protein, our body can burn protein for energy. It just doesn't want to. Protein was meant to be structural. It was meant to be everything that's important in your body is made of protein. Your muscles, your glands, your organs, your DNA, your RNA, all of it is made of protein. We don't want our body breaking down muscle tissue to provide us with energy. So I like to say that tank is for emergency use only. This is kind of what Lynnie was referring to, though. When our body gets in a state of metabolic dysfunction, when we eat a high carbohydrate-based diet like the standard American diet, we overload our body's ability to store carbohydrates and use them well. So the hormone insulin puts our metabolism in a state of fat storage, and it locks the fat in the tank until such a time as we remove all the excess carbs. There's no need to burn fat in an environment that is full of excess carbohydrates. And the other things that insulin does a lot of things besides fat storage. It creates high inflammation all over, both musculoskeletal and gastrointestinal. It can increase your blood pressure by telling your kidneys to retain excess sodium and fluids. It shifts triglycerides. Insulin converts excess carbs into triglycerides first and then stores them away. That's when your triglyceride levels go up in your bloodstream and your doctor yells at you. We have low HDL. The good cholesterol is low production when we're in this situation. Not to mention blood sugars. If they're not out of control, it's because there's so much insulin around taking care of this problem for you. It makes us metabolically sick to be in this state. Does that make sense? Is that something that you've heard before, Lynnie?
Oh, not only have I heard it, I've lived it. Absolutely lived it. And it is an amazing transformation when your body, when you reset it and your body goes to fat burning. It's an amazing transformation.
So I tell you what, let's go back to starting the program. You said, okay, I'm game, let's do this. And we got started during that first week in phase 1, et cetera. What do you recall? How did you feel? What went on?
So when I first started in week 1, it's tough. I mean, no question about it. I even though I thought I was eating healthy, what I learned was that I had no idea how much carbs and sugar I was actually feeding my body. I had no idea until I came to your workshop and I started the program. So getting my body to reset and switch out of that, the first couple of days were tough. But once, I got to that 3rd or 4th day, I was like, wow, I feel so good. I mean, I felt really good. I felt like I had energy. I was not bloated. My system, my whole gastrointestinal system liked the food. It liked what I was eating. It was responding to that. And I was like, wow, what is going on here? This is amazing. I feel so much better. And I wasn't even 1 week in and I already felt better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just me, but I had that same experience, the eye opening of, oh my God, I didn't even think I could feel this good.
Yes.
And you thought, right? And I knew I was not eating healthy and I knew I should feel bad, but I thought
I was eating healthier. I was a healthy eater or fairly healthy eater. I thought that I followed a pretty good nutrition program. But it was definitely eye-opening to see the transformation in my body, the way that my body was responding and learning.
And you lost a little bit of weight too.
I lost a little bit of weight too, and some fat.
So yeah, and your first week was a 4-pound weight loss. How'd you feel about that?
I was blown away by that. I was blown away by that. When I first started with you, I said, hopefully we'll get rid of the aches and pains, but maybe 10 pounds. I need to lose 10 pounds. Not a big deal. I'm not really, the weight is not my primary interest here. I don't feel like I need to lose that much weight. I worked out at the gym all the time with a trainer, weightlifting and so forth. So I thought I was pretty physically fit. So I was blown away by 4 pounds in the first week. Blown away.
Yeah. Yeah. Which by some standards in Ideal Protein, again, people that need to lose a much larger amount of weight, we've seen anywhere up to 10 to 12 pounds sometimes in that first week because of the housekeeping that has to happen when we drain that glycogen tank out, we get rid of all that bloat water, et cetera. And then we start burning fat and get into fat zone. But for someone like yourself who has been exercising for so long and eating right, and just your weight has not been moving, all of a sudden 4 pounds is like, whoa. And that was almost half as much as what you wanted to lose in the first place.
Almost half as much as what I wanted to lose in the first place. And when we started into this, we talked about the fact that your recommendation, your suggestion or thoughts would be that it would be about a 6-week process, maybe 8 weeks for me thinking about the 10 pounds that was my goal weight. And so with that, 4 in the first week, I was like, oh, I'm going to be done with this in 2 weeks. And, this is going to be great.
I'm getting in, getting out, right? I'm getting in, getting out.
Yeah.
So actually I was reviewing your file and looking back at those days, and at the end of 1 month, so at the end of 4 weeks, right, you were down 10.6 pounds. So you were down that magic number, and 7 inches off your body.
Yes, that was where I literally was mind blown that my body, a body that went to the gym regularly, worked out with a trainer regularly, running, active. I walk all the time. I am an active person. Yep. I was mind blown at that my body lost that much fat.
And you were feeling better and better, like the end of that first month.
Oh, the end of the first month, there was no turning back. I felt absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So that 10 pounds actually represented 4.2% body fat. So in that first 4 weeks, you dropped a percentage of body fat every single week.
Yes.
This is our experience when the fit get fitter using phase 1 of the Ideal Protein protocol. Did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? This is our experience, and this is how the fit can get fitter using the Ideal Protein protocol. Now, let's touch on it too. You maintained going to the gym, right?
Absolutely, yes. Through phase 1, I maintained going to the gym. Although we did change my program a bit, we lowered the weights a bit, so I wasn't doing quite the heavy lifting. But I did continue to go to the gym. I continued walking and exercising. The running, I did back off running a little bit until I was about 5 or 6 weeks in, and then I ran a 5K for the first time after starting the program.
Yeah. And so the thought process there, and it's been my experience, I've been a bodybuilding fan for most of my life, was able to be a part of the sport as kind of a sponsor and a helper at times. And I've always thought of those people in terms of the American population and why the two of them were so different, why one could manipulate their body so well, right? Just can't, right? And what they did exercise wise. So we talked about, we're going to be more in a cutting phase or a shredding phase. Right. We're not going to be in a bulk up phase right now. So what bodybuilders do to shred down is they decrease the weight and they increase the repetitions, right?
Yeah.
So tell your trainers we want to kind of focus on that, where we're looking to do some cutting and some shredding as we're melting that fat off of there. So that was the reasoning behind backing off on those weights, but yet still doing resistance training and still working with a trainer.
Still working with a trainer, and she was all on board with it and quite, intrigued by the program as well. And asked, every week we talked about it and weekly updates, and she knew all about the program and the protocol, what I was doing, what I was eating. everything. And exactly like you said, we did back down on the amount of weight, but we increased the reps.
Yeah. And so we added the branched chain amino acids on board.
Mhm.
That is now a part of, if we have clients exercising in protocol, we absolutely use that branched chain amino acid supplement there
Mhm.
immediately post workout. That is, those are the specific proteins for muscle maintenance and or muscle gain. And so your body is looking for those as soon as we're done with that workout.
Mhm.
So we get those on board.
Mhm.
The other thing that we talked about was electrolytes,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
What's
Mhm.
the number one electrolyte, Lynnie?
Element.
What's in the element that we drink?
What's not in
So
it is
it's
sugar,
sodium.
but it's full of it's full of sodium, so
It's
it's
all
amazing.
about the sodium. Yeah.
It
So
is all about the sodium, which was absolutely amazing, and I drink it every single day.
yeah. We want to increase that sodium intake if we're exercising in protocol. Once you get in a state of ketosis, your need for sodium goes way up. Your body will filter any excess sodium out of there because insulin is no longer in charge, but that creates an increased need.
Mhm.
Caffeine, sweat, and alcohol, although alcohol is not in protocol, those three things increase that need further. So we knew that caffeine and sweat was on board.
Yes.
So we
I would
counterbalance
have
for that.
coffee for anything.
We counterbalance for that. Me neither. Amen, sister. And the results were nothing short of amazing. Like I said, for any athlete to drop 4% in 4 weeks
Yes.
is mind blowing, right?
It was
And
mind-blowing.
and so yeah, we got to the end of phase one and we kind of pulled up somewhere around what was I looking at there? Somewhere around 16 to 18 pounds. When you finished up doing phase one, you said, no mas.
Mhm. Yes.
I'm good. I don't want to lose weight anymore. And I want to start focusing on increasing my running and maybe getting back to that. Whereas before you thought that your running career was done.
Before I started the protocol, in fact, that year, April, started the protocol in October of 2022. So April of 2022, I ran a half marathon, and at the end, it was awful. My performance was awful. I felt awful. The entire race was awful. Literally by mile 2 or 3, it was pretty bad. And so, um, I, uh, I thought about hanging up my running shoes.
Yeah.
I thought this is just crazy. There's no reason to feel this bad, or to continue to try to run if I'm going to feel this bad. And at the time, my thought had been that I wanted to run a marathon. I'd done a couple of half marathons, so the next step would be a marathon. But back in the back of my mind, I was like, your body's never going to go 26 miles. You just feel terrible. It's not going to do it. If I would be running and I would think, oh, I'd look at my watch and think, how many more miles do I have to go? And I would struggle at the end to try to, increase my time a little bit. And it just was not going well.
No, you weren't enjoying it, which is supposed to be
Wasn't
enjoyable.
doing it. No.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got you out of phase one and we kind of shifted into phase two and, you started doing a little bit of exercise, et cetera. But still, I was looking at, again, this is also, mind you, during the holiday season. You started in October.
Yes.
And we rolled through Thanksgiving.
Yes.
We shifted you into phase two. You went through Christmas.
Mhm.
And even in phase two and phase three, you still got leaner a little bit.
I did.
The stats that I have, and once we kind of, when you stopped at your lowest weight, I had you down just over 20 pounds total.
Mhm.
And, this is when we stopped losing weight. I had you over
Yes.
20 pounds total, which represented 11% body fat loss.
Yes.
You lost 11% body fat
Yes.
with 20 pounds.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing. You know what? I want to bring this.
Never done that before.
I want to show before and after so that, people can see what the impact of 20 pounds is. And when it is fat, just how much of a change, a transformation we can see, even just losing 20 pounds, right?
Mhm. Oh, definitely. And that nagging middle section that I was never able to get rid of with all that hard work in the gym.
And that's the most amazing thing. What I loved was the day that you came in and you said that your trainers were so blown away by your results and your transformation that they asked you to give them a testimonial.
They did ask me to give them a testimonial, the 2 trainers at the gym. So my trainer specifically that I work out with, but also the head trainer. They asked me to give them a testimonial, and they put up a picture. They asked for one of my pictures, and they put that there was one that they wanted, and they put up a picture of me with the testimonial in the gym.
And I said, you know what? I will give them credit for the
Yes.
muscle that you built underneath of there. But, you have to give us a testimonial for uncovering it so that the world could see.
And that is literally it. My trainer helped me build that muscle. And I worked hard at the gym, and she's an excellent trainer. She helped me build that muscle, no question about it. And I had results at the gym. It wasn't that I didn't have any, but you definitely uncovered it. And it's amazing now to see the muscle that was there that I wasn't able to see before doing Ideal Protein.
Yeah. So as I like to say, we lose weight in the kitchen and we get fit in the gym. And they,
Yes.
again, 2 totally separate concepts. You should
Yes.
not be going to the gym with the idea that you are going to lose weight. You should go to the gym to improve your cardiovascular health, your strength, your flexibility, all of those things, right? Gain muscle mass. That's the main
Yes.
reason that we're going to go to and stress relief.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
absolutely. Which is a large part of why I like to work out at the gym and I like to go running. It is enjoyable to me as a stress reliever.
Absolutely. And that's why many people, when they start the Ideal Protein program and they've been told in the past, well, we really got to kind of dumb down the exercise and just go walking. That's why it kind of turns them off because they don't want to give up that stress reliever, right?
I
They love.
didn't have to, and you don't have to. You
Yeah.
might have to. You might during phase 1, even if you have to change your program or your workout program a bit to fit what you're doing in phase 1. You don't have to give it up. I didn't. I worked
Yep.
out through I've worked out the entire time. I never stopped.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's the difference too between bringing a trained client in and having them continue exercise as opposed to somebody who has not been exercising and starting exercise at the same time. That's going to kind of be a little bit of a conflict. But,
Absolutely.
our trained clients that come in and want to get started so they can burn that excess layer of fat off of there that they've never been able to touch before, we should be able to adapt them pretty much right into that fat loss and go from there. So you decided, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and give running a shot. Let's get back to training, right?
Boy, oh boy, did I. I decided I did so I mentioned that I had done the 5K. I think I must have been somewhere roughly around 6 weeks into the protocol. And I ran a 5K, ran the rock and roll 5K with a friend of mine who I'd already signed up for it previously. So I said, yeah, what the heck? I really haven't, been running, but it's 3 miles. So I'm going to go down there. I'm not going to, push myself or try for a PR or anything like that. I'm just going to go run it and let's see how it goes. I couldn't believe it when I got to the finish line through the whole race, really. But when I got to that finish line, I felt great. I felt great through the whole race. I never felt sluggish. I never felt like, oh, I'm running in quicksand. Where's the finish line? When am I going to get there? I felt amazing when I finished that 3 miles. And I knew right then and there, I wanted to start training again and running again. And oh boy, I don't know what you did to me. I don't know what you did to me, Dr. Barnes, but the running from that moment on was a whole new world.
Yeah, it was. And again too, so trying to understand and debunk some myths, trying to shift the paradigm and understand how the human body actually was designed to work.
Yeah.
Take us through traditional running nutrition, running diet, and running diet and training traditionally. Take us through what that meant to you, what you were doing before.
So what I did was what the running community does. Runners typically tend to be involved in the running community and all the information that they share and put out, especially if whether you're really doing distance running, if you're doing running or regularly. And then obviously doing races. That's most of us like to go and do the races.
Well, why? And I'll say why. Because of the wall behind you.
Yes.
There's nothing like getting the medal at the end of the race, right?
It's all for the bling. We run the race for the bling at the end. That's the reason we do it. And to challenge ourselves to do more, go further, and get that PR. It's all about beating yourself. Well, for me anyway, I'm not going to speak for every runner, but for me, it's about beating myself or challenging myself to perform better, which I wasn't able to do with the nutrition from the running community, which is highly and heavily carb related. That's the nutrition plan I followed, which I thought was a good nutrition plan because I thought that those carbs were giving me what I needed to do the training and the running and to run the races. I thought that's where my body was drawing from the energy and fuel that it needed to go out there and perform and do the races. So I followed those programs while I still ate the protein. I still ate the vegetables, the fruits, carbs. I did eat the breads, the bagels. I mean, they want you to have a bagel in the morning before you do a race. And that's what I would do, a bagel for a race.
And typically, those recommendations are 50 to 60% of your total calories coming from carbohydrates, right?
Yes.
That is a typical, I've got a client right now
right? Up. Yes.
Well, that's the traditional pre-race dinner, right? Let's have the big pasta with the garlic bread and all the things because we've got and I just showed, right? Don't make me break out those tanks again. Your carb tank is this big, right? And so then all of those excess carbs that you took in that didn't fit in that tank are floating through your bloodstream, and insulin is desperate to do something with them. Yes. And it's storing that stuff away as fat. It's doing some of that overnight, right? Even before that race. Just absolutely insane when you stop and think about it, right?
And then along with that nutrition program or thought process or that I was following came the inflammation. Yes. I could literally feel it in my knee. The knee that I injured many years ago, I would run with a brace on. I would work out in the gym with a brace on my knee, and I could literally feel the inflammation in my knee, the inflammation in my lower back.
Yep.
Yes, all of that. All of that. Yes, from following the nutrition program that I thought was beneficial and healthy.
Yeah. So let's get a little sciencey again. I'm going to throw some graphics up, but we're not going to get crazy. The idea that what happened with Lynnie was because when you get in phase 1, we shift your metabolism into a state of ketosis naturally. And for me, this just represents a great time if you are a runner or an endurance athlete to do this thing that we call keto adaptation. We teach your body then not just to burn fat while we're on Zoom calls and answering emails and doing desk work. We teach your body to burn fat at a much higher intensity level and longer periods of time while you're doing endurance style exercise, for sure. When you look at these, I've got a couple of graphics up here from research, landmark research studies by Volek and Finney, 2 exercise physiology researchers that started talking about this in the 1980s. They were talking about low carb keto for endurance, and people thought they were absolutely bananas. But if you look at those two graphs, the orange and the yellow one, as to the ratio of fat to carbohydrate burning in high carbohydrate athletes, you see how much carbs are necessary to get that person to the finish line. And those carbs may or may not be stored away. Or what do you do if you've got a long race? How are you going to get through that race, Lynnie, if you're a carb burner?
Oh, if you're a carb burner and you're trying to run do an endurance, a long distance race, you are going to struggle big time, and you're probably going to crash somewhere.
Unless you're eating your way through,
yep.
Right? And traditionally, especially, you get past that half marathon to the marathon stage, there's people eating all kinds of stuff out there so that
all through the course, there's candy and there's the fruit chews that are full of sugar. I call them sugar cubes. So when I'm running a race and I see those little fruit snacks all over the place, I'm like, oh, there's sugar cubes everywhere.
Yep. And what's funny is some companies will just take the same fruit snacks you're giving your kid and slap a sports label on it and say, they're sport. And it's the same damn thing, right?
It is absolutely those energy jelly beans or energy beans that they give you in the race.
Jelly beans.
It's full of sugar. They're full of sugar. They're sugar cubes.
So what we'd like to train our body to do is primarily be able to burn fat at such a high rate and for such a long period of time, because we're carrying around that fat tank with us anyway, right? And even the leanest athlete out there on the course, the person who wins this race and looks the leanest, they're carrying around 30,000 calories of fat energy on their 6% body fat bodies. Mm-hmm. There's so much fat energy that we are carrying around all the time. The rest of us are carrying a little bit more than that. So we want to tap into and use that instead of having to shove food in our mouth to try to get to the end of this race, right? And the other challenge of that, we talked about that too. Lynnie, what is one of the, to me, the number one reason that people do not finish a marathon or do not finish a race, and the number one symptom that people have out on the course is what?
Cramps.
And gastrointestinal upset, right?
Cramps and gastrointestinal upset. My goodness, why do you think there's the Don's Johns all the way along the course? Lots of gastrointestinal upsets along long races.
And that was something that was foreign to me. I'd never run a marathon before, and I had a client who was doing it, et cetera, and that they told me the story. And they said they got to a point where there weren't any of those Don's Johns around, so they actually went in the woods.
Oh, there's people in the woods. There's people running off the course in the woods, and then lines at the Don's John sometimes. And, runners refer to it as runner's gut. They get runner's gut. What they aren't understanding is why they're getting runner's gut.
And, mom is always right. Right. And so when we were kids and we went to the swimming pool and it was a long day, we brought our lunch or we got to order pizza or something and have a meal at the pool. What was mom's rule before we could go swimming again? Do you remember?
Oh, you had to take a break. You had to sit down and take a break before you could get in the pool and go swimming so that the food could digest and you wouldn't get cramps in the swimming pool.
Right. So like we were talking about before,
swimming pool.
It's a little more dangerous to cramp up in the pool because you might drown, right? Now, running, not quite as dangerous. However, it's the same concept. And that concept is this. The way that our cardiovascular system is created, it's designed to shunt blood to parts of our body that need it the most. So if we are exercising, our body is going to shunt blood to the exercising muscles so that we can maximize our performance. If we eat a meal, if we eat food that requires digestion, our body is going to shunt blood to the digestive tract so it can be right there ready to pick up the nutrition and the nutrients as they're coming out. So why would anybody want to be trying to exercise through a marathon and eat a meal at the same time? It just makes common sense. It's going to create a conflict one way or the other.
Absolutely.
If there was a way you could carry all the energy you needed to get to the end of that race inside and on your body with just a little bit of extra help, wouldn't you try to do that?
I would think so. I tried it. It worked pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely it did. So we find out that, yes, in fact, there is a way to train your body through running and through a low carb and or ketogenic diet, and train that body to become much more efficient at burning fat as its primary fuel. But one of the things that you and I talked about that it kind of takes everybody back a little bit when I tell them this, because it seems, again, a little counterintuitive. But understand, we're trying to shift your engine, your performance engine, to a different fuel system, and it's going to take a little time for it to catch up. So one of the things we talked about was bringing your heart rate and heart rate training while you run.
Yes.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, finding your aerobic heart rate is very important for running and for endurance running. It's important for the fuel, for the way your body is burning fuel, and the endurance of everything for your training, for improving your training, for improving your time, your distance, your endurance, everything. So what I found is that once I found my aerobic heart rate, I was able to start training harder and longer and keeping my heart rate down. My heart rate was no longer going up. It was staying down, and it was getting lower and lower, closer to what my ideal aerobic heart rate should be. Even though I was training more, I was training longer, and I was training harder, my heart rate was going down.
Yeah.
And my performance was improving.
So yeah, we kind of started as a baseline. I like to use this formula by Dr. Phil Maffetone. I want to give him full credit for this, the maximum aerobic function heart rate. And it starts by using 180 and subtracting your age. And then he's got a couple of different modifiers based on your fitness level, how healthy you are, and some other things. And we come up with a heart rate that we stay under. We keep the heart underneath this heart rate while we're training. And that might require backing off and doing intervals and walking at points as well, right? And it represents a much slower pace than most runners are interested in trying to do.
Definitely.
And so those first few running workouts that you do at that low heart rate, you're kind of like, Doc, it's just, I don't even know if I'm exercising. But then very quickly, like you said, what you find is that you start running at a faster clip at the same heart rate. And that's how it starts improving. As your cardiovascular system and your energy system come together and start working, it creates a situation where you are able to increase or decrease your time, your interval, so to speak. So your time you run faster at that same heart rate.
Yes.
And this is, mind you, just for training primarily. This isn't when we get to race day. Hey, all bets are off. You race the way you want to race. But this is just, so a lot of people who are running out there or who are interested in exercise may know this as zone 2 training. And, you've got your zone 2 people that are very excited. You got your other people, no, you got to do HIIT, blah, blah, blah. However, this is it for endurance athletes and for creating keto adaptation.
Yes.
So how did you start to feel? What went on as your body started to feel better about this training?
What was amazing is that my body understood and knew and was learning what to do. My body was learning how to burn the fuel, or the clean fuel, the efficient fuel, the clean fuel, like a hybrid car.
Yeah.
Yes. My body was learning how to do that. And in doing so, I was staying in that aerobic heart rate zone. My heart rate was staying down, but my performance was going up, and I was running longer distances versus doing the running, walking, or versus, maybe doing some intervals, or, running really hard, then walking for a bit, the different types of strategies you use to try to increase your time, lower your time, or increase
your time, right?
Lower your time, increase your pace, get a better pace, and keep your heart rate down. But what I found is that I was able to go much longer distances with my heart rate staying down, and my time, I shaved 2 minutes per mile off my time. 2 minutes
That's nuts.
per mile. 2 minutes.
That's crazy talk.
It's crazy. 2 minutes per mile. I had never run like that. Never had I run or trained consistently at those paces.
And answer me this too. This is one of the extra added benefits that I think that you related to me that I hadn't even talked to you about was recovery. What's recovery like when you're in this metabolic state?
Recovery is so most people think of recovery as they've got to take, they have to take a day or two off or rest, or, they've got to refuel their body. When I would finish a training run, I felt like I could continue to run. I felt like I could run forever. And so recovery was quite easy.
How about post-exercise soreness? How about the next day?
None. Other than, maybe it depends, if I was going on a pretty long training run, obviously I would be tired by the end. When I got up into the, really, really longer runs. But there was no soreness, and I lost the brace that I had to wear on the knee. No longer had to wear the brace. I didn't need it. I no longer needed the brace on my knee to go running, and my lower back sciatic was behaving very, very nicely. I wasn't having the same pain and inflammation. And the recovery on the other side, I wasn't stiff and sore and have the muscle aches.
That's the big deal. And that's what people don't understand. When I experienced that, again, I've got a chronically swollen right ankle. Yes. And when I kept my nutrition low carb / keto, I realized that was no longer an issue, that I could start running. Yeah. And then the most amazing thing was the recovery. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to, in our house, it was stumps. Whenever my athlete kids, would overtrain or do whatever, they couldn't walk the next day.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got stumps, right? The stumps was no longer a thing.
It's no longer a thing. I could walk up and down the stairs without having to, hold myself onto the railing.
Right. You're like, oh my God, I did 10 miles yesterday. I can't. Oh,
that wasn't a thing at all. And the other thing that I found, I like to run outside. I'm not a treadmill person. So training in the winter or training in the summer, you deal with extreme temperatures. So I found that sometimes I would have to do back-to-back days of running where my training program may have called for a day off.
Yep.
I really didn't want to take that day off because of the weather or incoming weather that was coming up. So I would do the back-to-back running and still no muscle aches and pain and soreness, no inflammation, no brace on the knee.
Yeah. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, again, she referred to the hybrid car, right? The human body was meant to be the ultimate hybrid machine. Carbohydrate energy is dirty fuel. It's like diesel energy inside your body. There are a lot of metabolites and things that cause oxidative stress. You've heard of antioxidant vitamins. Those are important to clear out the byproducts of carbohydrate metabolism. So it's like, again, belching smoke as you're running down the road, as opposed to smooth, clean, quiet running. Mm-hmm. Right? Talk to us about this picture here. So rock and roll marathon, half marathon, right? Mm-hmm. First half marathon back in action after the one that you felt so bad the first time.
Correct. I ran this half marathon in 2022.
Yep.
2022. So March of 2022, this is the rock and roll half marathon down in DC, and I killed it. I mean, I ran the whole thing at a very nice training pace that I had set for myself. I felt great. At the end of the race, I felt amazing. The recovery was nothing for running a half marathon. I set a PR. I shaved probably, from the very first time I ran a half marathon till this half marathon, I probably shaved 40 minutes off my finish time.
Yeah.
40 minutes.
And that was the coolest medal ever. I was so jealous. My daughter and I had thought about doing that half marathon, and we at the last minute we just really couldn't do it. And then I saw the medal. I'm like, oh my God, coolest medal ever, right?
It was so cool. It's a cool race. It's
rock
a cool
and roll
race.
DC.
Yeah, it's a super cool race, and it was a super cool medal. And I felt absolutely amazing when I finished that race. And you can see no knee brace.
No knee brace, big old smile on your face, right? It was a whole new world. And, you know, you came in, and again, during this whole, you said it before, but during this whole time, the first time you said it unnerved me a little bit. When you're a chiropractor and somebody comes in your office and yells down the hallway, I don't know what you did to me, doc, right? Lynnie came in, and she just, every time that she would walk through the door, if my door was cracked open, as she walked by, she'd say, I don't know what you've done to me, doc. And she had to explain it at first. I'm like, oh God, did she feel bad? What happened? Did I hurt her? And she's like, oh my God, I've never felt this way running before.
Never. I've never felt that way running before. And I was overjoyed to be able to go running and enjoy it so much and see results that I wanted, but feel so good at the end, regardless of the PR. It's always nice to get a PR, but regardless of that, to actually feel good at the end of the race, I didn't feel like, oh, I can't take another step. I felt like I am cruising across the finish line, and I could still run another mile past that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And so on to the historic half marathon, which is part of the Marine Corps series, right?
Yes. Yes, it is. It's in Fredericksburg, and that one was in May of 2022. That's part of the Marine Corps Marathon series, and that is a beast of a run. Hills.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Hills, and it was brutally hot that day. It was like, in fact, they had issued heat warnings, or they had sent us an email the day before with the colors of the flags for the heat warnings, where, you know, if they had to call the race, they would get to a certain color flag. It was going to be that hot. So the morning of the race at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, it was already about 78 degrees.
Wow.
And humid. It was brutally humid, and it's a very, very hilly race. But you can see me with the thumbs up picture. My husband took that as I was rounding the corner to the finish line.
Yep. And again, I love that picture because you got the thumbs up. You seem very happy and excited that whole time.
Yeah.
You know, you've got, is that a water vest that you've got on there as well?
I did. I wore my hydration vest that day. I did wear my hydration vest that day.
Yeah.
Because of the heat index that they were calling for. I was a little nervous about, I mean, they have plenty of water. It's a Marine Corps race, but they also have Gatorade, and I'm not drinking Gatorade. I want my element. And so I want my element, and that's what I'm using when I'm training, and that's what I'm using through my race. So I was a little bit nervous about the heat index. So I wore my hydration vest that day just to ensure that I would have what I needed and what I wanted, which was my element. I didn't want to have to rely on Gatorade.
Yeah. So you packed that water that you were drinking full of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium, the three most important electrolytes to anybody, but especially when you are in ketosis, and especially when you're a keto athlete. You know, we do use a certain brand of electrolyte replacement here in my office that is suited very specifically for keto athletes. And I use that when I did my half Ironman triathlon. And so again, you've got this metabolic advantage over most of that field, right? A lot of people, when they're thinking hydration, and they're thinking, especially during a run, they're thinking about just the water itself, but it's most importantly sodium, keeping that water inside of you, keeping the spark plugs of your muscles and of your body going. And that's what needs replenished the most. Seasoned marathoners will eat salt sticks or eat salt tablets, right? There's all kinds of ways that, you know, seasoned marathoners will actually, they understand the salt thing. Yeah, again, firing on all cylinders, no cramping in those calves or feet, right?
No cramping. So that was also remarkable that day. It was so hot that residents had literally brought their sprinkler systems out so that we could run through them on the street.
Yeah.
Because it was so hot that day. And there were plenty of people sidelined, cramping.
Yeah,
I
I'm
didn't
sure.
cramp. I never cramped. I was able to finish the race. I ended up, losing a couple of minutes on my time, what I had set for my goal for my finish time, just because of the hills and the heat that day. But I still finished with a great time and no cramps. I had my knee brace on that day, but that's because I had gone running on the sand on the beach.
That was a
Don't
little.
do
Don't do that.
No. So my knee had given me a fit for a couple of days over the running on the beach. I went running on the actual sand, and I didn't wear my running shoes. I wore a different type of tennis shoe because I didn't want to get sand in my running shoes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So don't do that. But otherwise, the knee brace, I otherwise did not need it.
So that brings us then a little bit later on in the year, the Army 10 miler.
Army 10 miler, that's the precursor. Yep, the Army 10 miler. What a great race that is. It's a beautiful course through DC. I cruised through that one at about, yes, I cruised through that one at a really nice pace, and felt amazing again at the finish line. There's no, it was that we're getting into the colder season, and that was October, beginning of October when I ran that one. But still, no cramping. And I still, I use my element. I don't rely on Gatorade or anything like that on the course. But I just can't even describe how well my body responded to the keto, ideal protein training program and nutrition. I can't even describe how well my body responded to that. And it knows, your body knows exactly how to burn the fuel, and you get the performance out of it. So I felt great. I felt amazing running.
Yeah. And so just to clarify for listeners as well, she's not in phase 1 during this entire year, training, et cetera, et cetera. We had taken her through phase 2 with her macro code. In my practice, we tend to be very conservative on the carbohydrate tolerance level. We want to discover what your body's tolerance to carbohydrates is. When anybody comes into our clinic, it doesn't matter as much how many pounds you need to lose. If you are insulin resistant, if your metabolism has been so pro-insulin for so long, you're going to tolerate carbs. You're not going to thrive on carbs, even after you've lost the weight. So as we are in phase 2 in that macro code, and we're trying to figure out what is that line in the sand, I have to deal with it. I've come to grips with it. And again, I'm not willing to give up feeling this good or the ability to exercise. To add, hot dog buns and French fries Monday through Friday. That's just not it. So we keep our carbs very low. We're in the low carb, healthy fat zone and or keto. Some of us decide we're going to live that way through whole food nutrition. And we're going to use those ideal protein products for snacks or for in a pinch when I can't grab a meal or those kinds of things. And that's how we're going to use those products, because you can't beat them.
So, and just to add on to that, this is the first time I had ever trained as a keto runner or, in a keto program. I was in maintenance at this point. So the training that I was doing, I was in maintenance. So, but I still do use the ideal protein bars and things like that to fill in, so I'm not eating junk or having to rely on eating junk in certain situations. But I was in maintenance, but I had never tried training in a keto program. And the difference is, there's just no words for the difference in how you feel and the way your body responds to that. My body loved it, and my body knew exactly what it needed to do.
And, I will also, at this stage of my game too, I want to give a lot of credit to one of my friends and mentors, Dr. Mark Cucuzella. Mark wrote this book called Run for Your Life. And in the beginning of her training, I suggested this book to Lynnie. It is very much a really great manual for runners. that teaches all of the same principles. So I wanted Lynnie to hear it from somebody other than just me, a trusted resource, someone who has been, his name is known in marathoning. He is the running doctor. He's got his own running shoe store. He runs a keto diabetic clinic in West Virginia in the hospital. And this man was a legend. He had run over 30 marathons under 2.5 hours. Was kind of one of his claims to fame. He wrote this great book. And did you enjoy it?
Oh, I still refer back to certain chapters, and I read that book on a regular basis, even though I've read it through start to finish. And it was a tremendous tool during my training.
One of the other things that you got out of it that I thought was really neat too was he's got a chapter, a lot of about foot biomechanics.
Yes. Oh yeah.
He's really big into that.
Feet, everything.
Yeah. So you were able to adapt some of your running mechanics as well, which I also feel kind of helped out with that knee.
Oh, it definitely did. And I changed the way I was running because of his book. But also in the book, even though I changed the way I was running, and that was more for the knee and the hip and so forth. Also in his book, it is really geared towards the keto program and the running on the clean fuel, your body running on clean fuel. That's what it is there for. And it's amazing what your body does when you give it that.
So let's get to the pièce de résistance, the goal of a lifetime. You have never run a full marathon. No. You real quick, can you give us a story? How did you actually get your spot at the Marine Corps Marathon?
So the day that the marathon opens up, you have to sign on instantaneously the second that they open it up, and you have to enter like mad your information and hit the send button and hope that you secure a position. There's other races you can do to ensure that you get in. But for me, I said, I'm going to try it the opening day. Let me see if I get in. And if I do, I'm going to train and run a marathon. I got in.
Boom. There it was. It was a sign from God. He's been at work behind all of this stuff.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, without question, he is at work behind all of this stuff. And no question, it was a sign from God that it was my year to run the marathon. I had thought about it many times over. And that little, voice in the back of my head said, I don't know if your body's going to make it that far. So last year I decided I was going to run that Marine Corps Marathon, and I was going to do it as a keto runner.
And we did it, again, Dr. Mark lays out a training program, which is a little bit more reduced of a training program than what you necessarily normally would do. But people may or may not understand, in order to run 26 miles in a race, you have to kind of be sure your body can make it that far, or make it at least close to that far. Tell us about those longer training runs towards before the race.
Yeah. So the longest training run I did was 20 miles, but that was the furthest training run was 20 miles, but I did several 15 mile. I did several 13, quite a few 13, several 15. I did a 17 mile, an 18 mile, and then a 20 mile was my final long distance run before the actual marathon, before doing the 26.2. And my training was going great, just absolutely. And I trained through the summer, brutally hot, but it was going great. And how I felt at the end of those distance runs, I absolutely knew that my body could make it 26.2 miles. I try not to set the expectations of pace and time for myself doing a first marathon, but I knew my body would go the distance. I had no doubt that when I toed up to that start line, I would get to the finish line.
And prior to these training runs, what was the longest distance that you had run? I seem to remember I saw on your Facebook page, was it 16 miles was your first PR as far as distance went, or
15 was my first distance. So I had run a couple of half marathons, which is 13 miles.
Yep.
15 miles was the longest I had run prior to beginning this training.
Yep.
And it was so agonizing at the end, was part of the reason I wasn't sure my body could go 26. But that was prior to doing running training as a keto runner.
I saw that post that you did after a training run with your Garmin results on there that said this is a personal best, 16 miles in distance and what have you. So this is just a whole new world. The other thing that just happened to me, I got big butterflies in my stomach right now because I remembered you were coming in on a once a week basis as we were leading up to this race for both chiropractic as well as the nutrition check and the in-body. And every time that you would come in, like, you were nervous. I mean,
oh yeah,
right. And you made me nervous. I was, I'm feeling it again. I'm having that PTSD.
I was anxiously nervous.
Yeah,
I was anxiously nervous. Yes, I was anxiously nervous. Nervous for a tremendous amount of reasons. One, there's a lot of time that goes into following a training program to run a marathon. And it's not just the actual running. It is the nutrition, making sure that you're getting your nutrition right, making sure that you're preparing. And then also on the other side, getting your nutrition right once you've finished your training runs. So there's a lot that goes into it. That, and I was so excited that I was finally going to run my bucket list. My bucket list run was the marathon. The Marine Corps marathon was my bucket list run. It was and I was so excited that at the prospect of actually being able to do it.
Yeah. Talk to us about this picture here. That's the Iwo Jima Memorial behind you.
Yes. And that's where you finished.
And what was that? What was the finish line like for you?
Oh, a dream come true. It was absolutely amazing when I crossed that finish line. I felt so proud of myself. So proud of myself. I felt that I had seen it through. I had set a goal. I had completed that goal. I felt fantastic. I didn't cramp. I wasn't cramping. I still wasn't cramping. After 26.2 miles, I never hit the wall. I was not cramping. I could have continued running probably if I wanted to. Lots of people are, trying to figure out how to walk to their cars. I was walking around just fine. But it was an amazing, incredible feeling. And I literally looked up and thanked God for giving me the opportunity and the ability to be able to do it. And that picture right there that you have in front of the Iwo Jima is one of my absolute favorites. Those poor guys have been out there for hours taking pictures, and I stepped up and said, "You got to give me one more." And they were like, "No." And so I got a picture with them. And that's where we finished. You run, by the way, uphill.
Yeah, of course.
Marine Corps marathon. Yes.
It's those damn Marines.
Absolutely. They don't make anything easy on you, but it's uphill to finish the Marine Corps marathon. So you run uphill and you finish at the Iwo Jima, which is super cool.
And what's fascinating too, we haven't even talked about it or said anything to the listeners. You did this at the age of 30. Is this no. how old
30 plus. I ran the Marine Corps marathon at 55 years old.
Yeah. Right. At the age of 55, you realized this dream. And, you didn't just realize it, you grabbed it by the throat and you did this.
I did it. I felt just absolutely ecstatic that I was able to do it at 55 years old without all the struggle of the knee and the lower back and the inflammation and the pain and the aches and the muscle aches. That I should have experienced, but did not because of the proper training and nutrition. But it was just absolutely amazing. And I would do it again. I would run it again.
Yeah. And I tell you what, again, never underestimate what you're capable of. And I will add to that, at any age,
At any age.
right?
At any
Such a,
age.
such a huge deal. Yeah, we were super excited for you. So proud. When you brought those medals in, it was really just such a neat feeling. I was watching you on
Hanging
the
right
app.
here.
I forget what was going on that day. There's a reason I actually couldn't get down there. I desperately wanted to be down there, but we had something going on. So I followed you on the app, the whole way. Whenever I've got a running client and they're doing something like this, or a triathlete client, I follow them so that I can be, a part of watching them. And you get those splits come across on your phone. You're just like, go, Lynnie, go.
Yeah, it went well. It really went well through the whole race. I stuck to my training program, and it went really well. I was really happy. I was really happy with my finish. Yeah, it was
well,
great.
and not for nothing. I saw that too. What was your pace? It was like an 11.
I stuck right around 11-minute per mile pace.
Yeah.
Which is about, it's a bit slower than I had been running, but I did dial it back a bit just because I did have to go the 26.2. It's the unknown. I'd never gone that far.
Yeah.
So I was maybe a little bit conservative, which was my choice and how I had decided I was going to approach the race. So I was right at around 11-minute per mile for most of it. I slowed down a little bit at the end, but that's where I had to give myself that talk of, you came here to do this, and we're going to see it through. We're not slowing down. Oh, I did stop and take the picture at 26.
Right. And at 20, there was another one at 20 miles, right?
Yeah, that was before the bridge, the dreaded bridge. So I took a picture. Yeah, before you go across the 14th Street Bridge, which is hot, because you were in nothing but straight sun.
Nowhere to hide there, right?
Nowhere to hide. So I did stop and take a couple pictures. And honestly, I did try to take in the courses I was running it too, because you don't know if you'll ever be able to run a marathon again. So I did try to take in a bit of the course and the scenery as I went through.
Yeah, super cool. So I want to wrap this show up, and I want to wrap it up with another really cool story that you brought to me a few weeks ago. This is a non-scale victory that has absolutely nothing to do with running. It has absolutely nothing to do with being an athlete. It's just another one of those things that you could never predict. You could never write this script. It's something that happened that would not have been possible had you not done the Ideal Protein Protocol.
Absolutely. So a couple of weeks ago, my cousin was getting married. First time, her first marriage. Her and the groom both. They're 50, both of them. But anyway, it was their first marriage. So my granddaughter was going to be the flower girl in the wedding. So we went to the rehearsal dinner, which was Friday night, which is the night before the wedding. And we're at dinner, and my cousin comes over in a bit of a tizzy because there's been an issue, and one of her maid of honors is not going to be able to make it to the wedding the next day. So she comes over to the table, and she's in a bit of a panic, as you can imagine, being a bride. And she says, "Lynnie, what size dress do you wear?" And I told her, and she said, "That's the dress. That's the size dress we have. I need you to stand in as the maid of honor tomorrow." And I'm like, "Tomorrow?" She said, "Yes." So I went and tried the dress on, and the dress fit me perfectly as if it had been made for me. And I was able to stand in for my cousin at her wedding and relieve her stress and worry that day. But I assure you this, I would never have been able to zip that dress up before I wouldn't even have been able to zip it up. I would have had to tell her, "I'm sorry, I can't fit the dress."
Yeah. Say yes to the dress.
Yes to the dress. I was able to fit the dress. And because of Ideal Protein, I was able to wear that dress and stand in for my cousin and make her day an amazing day.
What an absolutely amazing memory. And yeah, again, something you never could have predicted.
No, never. It just happened to be.
Something I will add, ladies and gentlemen, again, she has absolutely maintained her weight ever since that she finished phase 1 in the beginning of 2022. And so, yeah, and such a beautiful picture of you and your granddaughter.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. She was pretty excited to be the flower girl in the wedding.
Yeah, she's just precious. So what a moment for both of you, right?
Both of us. We get to be in this together.
You weren't necessarily supposed to be in the ceremony. You got to be in there too. That's super awesome. Lynnie, thank you so much for being with us today on the show. Thank you so much for being such an incredible example for everyone as to the power of Ideal Protein, being such a great spokeswoman. I really appreciate it. And it's just been a great honor to be a part of your story.
No, thank you. Ideal Protein is my protocol for life. And I thank you for turning my life around and giving me the freedom of living a nice, healthy, nutritious protocol that I can do the things that I love to do.
Wow. And I can't wait to see where we're going to go with it too.
Absolutely.
So, this was just the beginning. Lynnie,
absolutely.
Hang out backstage. I'm going to wrap things up.
Okay.
Talk to you later. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us today. Just an absolutely amazing story of what can be done using the Ideal Protein protocol so that the fit can get fitter. If you are fit, you're carrying around too much fat, you want to get rid of that and leave it behind. Reach fitness goals you've never been able to reach before, endurance goals that you've never been able to reach before. Starting off by doing the Ideal Protein protocol is the best decision you can make. I've got so many cool shows coming up. I've got some returning guests with some amazing new stories you've never even considered, and how Ideal Protein is trying to make an impact on both the obesity epidemic and the metabolic disease epidemic in this country, improving metabolic health in the United States and Canada and North America. That is our #1 goal and vision and mission. So until we see you again, Ideal Protein Nation, keep reaching for your life possible.